Welcome to another AAA Northeast webinar. I am Robert Sinclair Jr., Manager of Media, new title, Senior Manager of Public Affairs for AAA Northeast. Got to get used to the new title. And we're here to talk about something that you may have heard some whispers about. It's Real ID. Maybe you've heard some shouts, but whether you've heard soft noise or loud noise, you might not be quite sure about what Real ID is. We're here to demystify what Real ID is. And joining us to help explain all this away is Dave Hempy. He's I want to make sure I get your title right, Dave, Managing Director of Branch Operations for AAA Northeast. Good to see you.
That's correct. It's good to see you too, Robert. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, first of all, let's find out, what is Real ID and why would someone need it?
So Real ID was an act that was passed in 2005.
Oh, you froze a little bit there.
Yeah, I don't know where we...
Keep going, go ahead.
Okay.
Real ID
right, so
and what it is.
Okay, Real ID. Real ID was an act that was passed by Congress in 2005 to establish minimum security standards across all states for state-issued driver's license, permits, and ID cards. The act prohibits federal agencies like the TSA from accepting cards for official purposes from states that do not meet these standards. As of right now, the new law will take effect on October 1st, 2021.
And why would someone need one? What is the Real ID used for?
So Real ID is used primarily to enter a federal facility, and most importantly, it will be used to board commercial aircraft in the United States after October 1st, 2021. So a standard license will no longer be compliant. You will need either a Real ID or another one of the documents from the official document list, such as a valid passport or a passport card.
So this is really a more secure driver's license, and really it grew out of what happened on 9/11, that driver's licenses apparently were used as the ID for most of those hijackers. So the federal government is now stepping in to make sure that we have a 50 state-wide secure identification as a driver's license.
That's correct, Robert.
And that will be able to use, so if people are accustomed to using their driver's license, then they will need this starting, what is the date again?
The date for compliance is October 1st of 2021. It was extended from October 1st, 2020. Unfortunately, due to the pandemic, they did advance it out a year to October 1st of 2021.
Now, someone who may have heard of Real ID have perhaps heard that there is a plethora of documents that's needed, but you've got it boiled down to a succinct, 3 or 4, I believe. What documents do you need to get the Real ID?
So Real ID, a lot of people are, this is the name of this publication was Demystifying Real ID. Real ID really comes down to 3 main components that each state has applicable laws for. The 3 main components are proof of identity, proof of social security, and proof of your date of birth. And if we have a moment, Robert, we can go over the state of New York regulations in regards to those 3 items.
Sure. Proof of identity. What do we have for that?
So proof of identity is a valid birth certificate or a current U.S. passport that shows your full first, middle, and last name. The name as it appears on this document will now be the name that's displayed on your driver's license per federal law. So it's important for anyone that's had a name change to make sure that you bring in any additional paperwork to prove the name change from your original document to what it is today. The only exception to that would be if you already have a valid passport in your new name, then that can suffice for the additional paperwork that's needed to prove a name change. So to break it down, if you have a valid US passport, that's what we like to see. That's the easiest one for us to translate into a Real ID document. If you do not have a valid passport, then please bring your original birth certificate. No photocopies are accepted, and that birth certificate must be issued by a city or town. No hospital birth certificates. Along with that, if there was a name change, You'll have to bring in your marriage certificate showing the name before and after, or a divorce decree, whatever you have to prove from when you were born to what your name is currently. That's how we establish the name for a real ID.
Okay. I was wondering about that. And the second one, proof of Social Security, did you say?
The next one is proof of Social Security. So proof of Social Security can be done in many ways. One of the easiest is an original non-laminated Social Security card that was issued to you, not a Social Security stub, not some of the older cards that have been laminated. A lot of parents, such as my own, laminated my Social Security card. You cannot use that, unfortunately. You can use an original Social Security card, or if you have a recent W-2 with your full name and Social Security number, we can accept that as well. There are other Social Security documents that can be used, such as a 1099, etc. And there's a complete list on the New York DMV website that provides the details on what can and cannot be accepted for that program.
And I'm sorry, refresh my mind. What was the third one that you mentioned?
The third one is proof of your date of birth, which I'll talk about.
Date of birth. Okay.
Also, in regards to Social Security, it's important that you have your name matches as well. A lot of people have changed their names, and your Social Security card must match as well. The Social Security website, you can set up your own account there, and you can have a new card sent out to you directly from the Social Security Administration. It's free and it's easy.
Now, if someone is in the country and they were born outside of the United States, it's a little complicated. They have to have some extra ID.
They do. There's some extra ID that's required in regards if you were born outside of the United States. There is a form from the state of New York, and I'm looking for the form number. It's called ID-44, and it has a comprehensive list of all the items that you can use to establish for a real ID or an enhanced ID, which we'll talk about in a moment. So proofs of citizenship, you can use a certificate of naturalization or citizenship forms 550, 560, etc. It's all detailed right on this ID-44 form. And you can also use an original or certified copy of a U.S. consular report of birth abroad, which a lot of military families have those as well. And you will see those documents listed on the ID-44 form, which is available from the New York DMV website. And Robert, the third area is actually proof of residency. I apologize, we had the title wrong in the document that we have here. I'd like to talk about that for a moment, if you don't mind.
Proof of residency, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
What do we do for that?
All right, so proof of residency, common things such as a credit card statement, a utility bill, things that are mailed to your address, but not a PO box. It has to be within the past 60 days. Your driver's license, if it's valid, can act as one. You can also use utility bills, credit card statements, mortgage statements, insurance documents, etc., that have been mailed to you within the past 60 days, and that will establish the residency for you. The state of New York also has a form for self-certification of residency that we can provide at the office if you can only locate one item from the residency list, which is also on the New York DMV's website in regards to Real ID.
So let me get this right now. Just to review quickly, we need the proof of birth certificate, proof of Social Security, proof of residency, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, those are the big three. Now, how much more is this Real ID going to cost me?
The good news is, if it's during your renewal cycle, there's no additional cost for state of New York residents. So it's part of your regular license renewal. You can upgrade to Real ID by providing the original paperwork to us, and we can establish that for you at no additional cost. The state of New York is
I'm sorry to cut you off. What do you mean part of renewal cycle?
So when a person is in renewal cycle, you can renew up to 1 year before and up to 2 years after your current license expires, and you're still in renewal cycle. So what that means is you can upgrade to Real ID, pay nothing additional. If you're early, they will do a prorate on you. If you're expired, you'll pay the amount and it expire on the normal 8-year renewal cycle for the state of New York.
So New York licenses generally last 8 years, correct?
That is correct.
So say I'm in year 3 or 4, what might the fee be, or is there any?
That's the one question I'm unable to answer because every single person's license dollar amount is different. The best thing to do is to bring a credit card, a debit card, cash, or a check, and we can tell you what that fee is at the time of renewal.
Very good. Very good. Now you mentioned enhanced driver's license, the so-called EDL. What
Correct.
is that?
So the EDL is an enhanced driver's license that allows for land and sea crossings into Canada and Mexico for New York residents only. There are other states that participate, but we're talking about the state of New York today. Now, there is an additional fee for that. It's $30, but then you wouldn't have to have a passport to cross the borders into Canada or Mexico. So it is a very nice feature that the state of New York has. The paperwork is identical to Real ID. In the office, it takes a little bit longer because we have to go through some additional steps to qualify you for that. But a lot of our customers do choose the enhanced license over the Real ID because it allows them to travel into Canada or Mexico with their driver's license. It's a very nice feature.
And with Canada bordering New York State and a popular tourist destination for residents here, that is a good feature. And now I'm coming back from, you said Mexico, also the Caribbean with the enhanced driver's license?
Yes, it's land and sea.
Land and
not
sea.
Air. Yep.
But not
so it's
air.
a land and sea passport card for entry into Canada, Mexico, and several Caribbean nations. The exact list is on the New York DMV website.
Okay. And again, the fee for that is?
It's an additional $30 on top of your normal license fee.
Now, a lot of people are already getting these Real IDs, and I think surprisingly, a lot are opting for the enhanced driver's license, right?
They are. That is correct. I think when people weigh the cost of a new passport, if they can get this for $30, it benefits them in many ways.
So this enhanced driver's license can be used in lieu of the passport, but only for Canada and Mexico?
That's correct. And certain Caribbean nations.
Okay.
Now, remember, it's not for air travel, though. It's only for land and sea.
Only for land and sea from Canada, Mexico, and some Caribbean nations.
That's correct.
Or as my grandfather used to say, the Caribbean nations.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, the big news for us, the big news for us at AAA is the fact of where you can get your Real ID, and where might that be?
So we have some exciting news. Our AAA office in Lincoln Square in Manhattan, Brooklyn, and Queens are now offering New York DMV registry services for our members. So we have 3 offices currently that are providing these services for our members by reservation.
Yes, that's the important thing. Someone needs to make an appointment. Well, I remember the old joke of the grown son that goes to visit his mother and says, "Mom, what are you making for dinner?" And she says, "Reservations." You need a reservation to be able to go into the branch and make all this happen. That's correct?
That's correct.
And
that's partially due to the pandemic. We want to make sure that we can maintain the state guidelines as far as the number of customers in our office at any one time, for social distancing requirements, and to make sure that we serve you in a timely and effective manner. We do require an appointment to come in and do these transactions.
And we are maintaining all the proper social distancing. And I understand the Lincoln Center branch is a beautiful architecturally designed location. So the whole experience of being in the branch has been enhanced, not only to make it a pleasant experience, but also to make a safe experience as far as the pandemic is concerned.
That's correct.
Yeah. Well, we're going to see, let's see, we have a question. Let's see, I think this may have been asked. A member has asked if they must make an appointment to get a Real ID. Can they just walk in and have the transaction completed at their convenience? I guess that would be a no.
So they can go to AAA.com, and if they hover above the automotive tab, you'll see New York DMV services, and it brings you to a link to the transactions that we can complete, and also the appointment page at the same exact location.
Okay. And a member has asked if the New York State enhanced driver's license meets the requirement for Real ID if it does not have the gold star.
It does. It's a very good question. A lot of TSA locations, et cetera, have a note that only driver's licenses with a gold star will be accepted, but that's not actually true. The enhanced license is absolutely Real ID certified and compliant, and will be accepted for Real ID locations once it takes effect.
So enhanced driver's license, another question getting touched on. Enhanced driver's license is a Real ID.
That is correct.
It's just a higher
It's
level.
actually a higher level of security above a real ID, which is why there's an additional fee for it. So yes, it absolutely meets all the requirements for real ID.
And you will need that, I believe, to get in certain facilities.
It is federal locations, nuclear power plants, and mainly the main use for most of our customers is for boarding a commercial aircraft after October 1st of 2021.
Okay, another question from a member. They say the license does not expire for 2 more years. Asked if they can upgrade to a real ID now. They also want to know if they must take another photograph or can they just use the current picture and print that out on a real ID.
Thank you to that customer that asked that question. It's a very good question. In the state of New York, for a standard license, you never have to upgrade your photo. However, if you get a real ID or an enhanced ID, a new photo is required. You need to have a new photo for that, and that's a federal law. The answer to the other question in regards that they're longer than 2 years, then yes, they can get a duplicate license and upgrade to real ID or the enhanced driver's license at that time.
Very good. Also, a member asks if they have a CDL Class B, commercial driver's license, Class B license, can they still get their real ID done at our local AAA branch?
It's a very good question. Unfortunately, AAA branches cannot do anything with a CDL. That's a federal license that must be done directly at the registry. Again, these are excellent questions, Robert.
Well, our members are coming up with some really good questions, I think. I think we've done a lot to demystify the real ID. Anything else that comes to mind, Dave? I'm just wondering when I need to go get mine. I just renewed my license last year, but I guess you won't know how much I might need to pay until I get down to the branch.
It's a sliding scale in the state of New York. Depends on your date of birth and how long you have left on your remaining license, et cetera. So we don't like to quote what the amount is. It's not possible for us until you're in front of us in the office. So, but we welcome you. Just make an appointment and you can come on down to our Brooklyn, Queens, or Manhattan locations, and we'll be more than happy to service you.
And
one other thing I'd like to mention is this question comes up often. You need to have a AAA membership card in your name. So if there's a spouse situation where one person has a membership and the other person doesn't, we can only wait on the person that has a membership card in their name. So the other person will be asked to join, and we do have special rates for that if you come into one of our offices.
Suppose someone is an associate member.
Associate member is perfectly fine. Okay. And you can have a membership from any other state as well, as long as it's a valid AAA membership, because a lot of people they might have a residence somewhere else and their AAA membership is at a different state. That's perfectly fine.
Very good. Finally, websites. I believe there are a couple that we can go to. What might they be to get more information?
So you can start off on AAA.com, which has links to the state of New York's website where all of this information is held. The DHS website also has information in regards to the Real ID program and also the enhanced license program. The state of New York, one other thing I'd like to add, Robert, is the state of New York on their internal website for the Department of Motor Vehicles has an excellent tool. It allows you to enter the documents that you have for a real or enhanced driver's license, and it's real time. So if you enter that you have a birth certificate, it was issued on this date, et cetera, at the end, it'll let you know if you have the proper documents that will allow you to have a real or enhanced driver's license. It's a very useful tool. As people call into our offices to inquire about real ID or enhanced ID, that is the location that we tell them to go. The web address itself is dmv.newyork.gov/realid. That's dmv.newyork.gov/realid. And from there, you can launch that tool, which will let you know if the documents that you have are acceptable. I just want to make an important note. No agency can accept photocopies of any documents, so they have to be originals. That's part of the original act that was passed in 2005 to make sure that everyone is resubmitting documents that are perfectly legal and valid. Therefore, no photocopies can be accepted. That's one of the challenges that we have when our customers come in. Sometimes they believe that's the only thing they've had is a photocopy of their birth certificate. Unfortunately, they need to have an original. Otherwise, we're unable to do the transaction for them.
That state website sounds like it's everything a person might need if they'll be able to go through that checklist, and it will let them know. We also have, I believe, www.aaa.com/reservation. If you have all your documents in place, and the New York State website has told you that's the case. There's another, is it AAA.com/DMV or registry? I'm not quite sure.
I believe it's AAA.com/registry.
/registry, which
Correct.
is DMV services.
But if you just go to AAA.com and it asks you to put in your zip code, it'll bring you to the proper page and you can search from there. So, and Robert, if you check the chat, I think we have a couple more questions as well.
Okay. Oh yeah, will Staten Island get a location for this service?
So right now we're asking people to check AAA.com because we are definitely interested in expanding this program. We currently do not have an office in Staten Island at this time. We do have other locations in downstate New York that we're looking to enhance by adding these, and we should have some information on that in the near future. But right now, unfortunately, there is no location on Staten Island.
So for the time being, Manhattan and
Brooklyn. And Queens.
And yes. Queens. Very good. I believe that's it. I don't see any further questions. Website for more information, AAA.com/NYDMV. Let's give that again, AAA.com/NYDMV. I think that's a fitting place to finish.
Yes, I do too.
Dave, I know you've been working real hard, putting in a lot of miles and a lot of hours to make all this happen. We appreciate your hard work.
I'm pleased to do it. It's exciting to offer these services to New York residents. We've had this program successfully in other states, and we are very happy to be able to offer it to our members in the New York area.
And I've been carrying my passport the last few years to fly domestically. It's nice to know that I'll be able to get a smaller card that will fit conveniently in my wallet, that I'll be able to fly domestically. And if I go to Canada or Mexico or by sea to the Caribbean, that will cover everything.
It will.
We'll have all that we need. Dave Hempy, Managing Director of Branch Operations for AAA Northeast. Thank you very much for joining me. And we hope that we've demystified everything about Real ID. And again, check those websites if you have any questions. I am Robert Sinclair. Thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you next time on a AAA Northeast webinar.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think you have to click